Hello everyone, Dr. Nicole LaPera, the holistic psychologist here. As always, thank you for tuning in. So today's video is going to be on a concept that I talk about often, which is called emotional addiction. So I'm going to dive into what exactly that is, but first I'm going to share with you my journey to discovering this concept and really giving it this name. So when I first began my clinical training, I did a lot of work in substance use treatment centers. I ran groups in particular for individuals in differing stages of their recovery journey. And during these groups, we would talk a lot about their past and their histories and the development of what they would eventually call an addiction. We talked a lot about their use behaviors. And then, of course, we spent a lot of time talking about the consequences of their using whatever substance it was. And what I found was that globally, while yes, when we're ingesting a substance, there are physiological changes that most of us refer to as being high. That differs depending on the substance that we're using. Understandable. But what I began to realize is that what we were really talking about, regardless of the substance that we were using, we were really talking about the emotions that were part of that whole process. The emotions leading up to the desire to use, the emotions of acquiring, the substance that I'm going to use, and then the emotions that met me on the other side of my use. And what I came to realize is that that was part of the story of addiction. And then more surprisingly, when I evolved my practice and I was working with individuals and I went through my whole awakening period and I became really conscious of myself and my own patterns, what I came to realize is that I too, and many of my clients, had what I call an emotional addiction, even in absence of using any substance, that a lot of us humans are quite literally addicted in a sense to emotion. So what do I mean? So I've called it the hit emotion. We become habituated or used to an emotion in particular. And that could be anything. It could be sadness, it could be anger, it could be stress. So for me, I'm going to use myself as an example, and I think one that a lot of you might relate to. As a child, I grew up in a very chaotic feeling, stressful environment. A lot of stress, a lot of the time, very overwhelming, but it became my normal. With stress, so I'm going to use this example in particular, though all emotions map onto actual changes in the body. There are hormones that get released, neurotransmitters, our body's energy shifts and changes. So using the stress example, being a young child, being in a stress-inducing environment, my body began to release very frequently, because I was very frequently stressed, hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. That actually maps onto a physiological change in my body. So does anger, so does sadness. Whatever feeling you might come to the awareness is your emotional addiction, they all affect our body and they all result in physiological changes in our body. So that coursing through my body, that became a chemical cocktail, or it produced a high. It produced a space of emotion that I became so frequently used to experiencing. It became a normal, in a sense, and it became the emotion that I felt. So I became very used to feeling a degree of stress all of the time, and my body became very used to feeling a degree of stress all of the time, which led to what we call desensitization, meaning I needed more and more stress to register a feeling, my feeling that I was most familiar with being stress. So our brain now, our mind, if you will, gets wind of our familiar. And for me, my familiar, remember, was stress. So we have a part in our brain. It is called the reticular activating system. Short and simple, it's our mind's filter. Because the reality of it is, if I took in every piece of information available to me in this moment right now, I would be debilitated. I wouldn't be able to process it all. So what I had to do is my brain has to make sense of what's relevant for me in my life experience and what's not. So because I got used to certain level of stress hormone, I needed that level to feel normal to myself, and I needed more to have a feeling. So what my reticular activating system did is it began to filter to my experience all stressful experiences, all things that could possibly stress me out. And I got really used to noticing them. So I would walk through my life nodding or notching the things that would give me that hit of emotion. And when this became really clear to me, and I want to share this because I know it resonates when I share this experience, became really clear to me when daily life events, I live alongside a partner, so she gets to observe me and my experiences a lot. They would be stressful. No arguments here. Small life stresses would happen. However, I would be thrown into an overreactive tizzy for seemingly small things. And as this would happen time and time again, she sat me down one day and she said, you know, Nicole, I don't think you're that frazzled when these things happen. And she really spoke to me because the truth was I didn't. But my body was so used to the hit of panic, of chaos, that it took losing my key or misfiling a piece of mail. It took that as the reason to create that level of stress in my body, even if me and my conscious awareness did not mean it. I wasn't really that upset. So how do we get out and how do we break out of these patterns? Now, as I always say, there is no quick fix, but with consciousness, with showing up as that observational self where I can in those moments say, you know, Nicole, it really is only a piece of mail. And then if stress is your hit emotion, I did a video last week, how to balance your body through stress. Because remember, these are real events in our body. So to heal our emotional addictions are 2 steps. Consciousness, so I can make new choices, not those age-old reactions. So for me, running, screaming around like a chicken with my head cut off, not helpful to anyone. But we also need to integrate daily body regulatory tools then as well. So I hope you guys found this helpful. A lot of us struggle with emotional addiction, and there really is a way out. First and foremost, being conscious and observing and discovering for yourself what that hit emotion might be.